So, who's thirsty? The Waters of Mars. This one was interesting. And also, this review is brought to you by Radio vs. the Martians. It's a podcast, which means you don't have to pay anything for it, and it features Mike Gillis and Casey Dorn, as well as a revolving stable of guests. And they talk about all manner of geeky stuff. Anime, wrestling, Batman, vigilante films, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever is on their minds. And of course, that does include Podcast La Vista, baby. Every single movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger has ever made. Radio vs. the Martians at radioversusthemartians.com or wherever you get your podcast. This was a weird one to go back to. I've always had a bit of an odd relationship with Waters of Mars. I've never disliked it and never thought it was bad, but the thing is, I think at this point I have a reputation for not liking it because it's an episode that tends to show up on a lot of people's top 10 lists or otherwise praising of Doctor Who in general or Tennant's era or Russell T Davies' writing in particular. And I think the only time it ever cracked my top 10 was when I did one on scariest episodes, and even then I still had some caveats. So there's this perception, I think, that I hate this episode because I don't lionize it the way a lot of other people seem to. I do like this episode. I've always liked this episode. And having rewatched it now, I've realized where a bit of the disconnect was, and I've come to appreciate it more. Here was the odd thing that I realized after watching it and thinking about it for a bit. Because basically, everything kind of came together as it closed, and then I had to think, okay, why is this working for me here where it didn't before? Or at least didn't as well. And the thing was, what most people go nuts about when talking about this episode, at least so far as what I've seen them go nuts about, are how scary it is. You know, the tension, how horrifying the flood is. And the thing is, those have never really quite rang true to me. But what I realized after watching it this time is, this is a great episode, but the reason I think it's great aren't the reasons everyone else has been telling me that it's great. And I think that's why I kind of pushed back a little, because people were like, well, all these things, and I'm looking at those going, well, those aren't working for me on the same level, so the episode must not be that good. No, it's very, very good. Just, for me at least, for different reasons, because I don't think this is particularly scary. I get why for some people it is, but I don't find it very scary at all. It's nowhere near as scary as Blink, as The Empty Child, as the Vashta Nerada are. I don't find it as scary as The Silence, nowhere near as scary as The Midnight Entity. I mean, I get why it is for some people, but for me it just isn't really. I mean, the look's kind of cool, but they're zombie analogs. And I know zombies. I know zombies like the back of my recently bitten hand. I should get that checked out. If I was smart, I would have done up makeup or something on that to actually sell that joke, but I'm lazy. Plus, I thought of it off the top of my head, because I don't script a lot of the time. Oh, I'm giving away everything here. Anyways, because they are such a zombie analog, with infected water subbing in for what would otherwise be infected blood, that, I've kind of seen this. It's a variant. It's an interesting variant, but I've seen it. And a big part of anything that scares me is when if I feel off-put and I don't entirely know what's going on. And that's never really been the case here. And actually, I would argue, I don't think the episode itself is even trying to be as scary as a lot of people claim that it is. Because there's only a couple of jump scares, and it's really only the first 2 times that we see someone infected by the flood that it's played off as legitimately scary. And after that, when people get infected, it's not played as scary, it's played as tragic. is played as inevitable, which it is, because within, 15 minutes of this episode starting, the Doctor realizes, and the audience does as well, these people are all gonna die. So there's no real tension in wondering, will they get out of this? And honestly, that's something I've criticized about this before. So, to compare to the Vashta Nerada, one of the reasons that I'm I don't find the flood as scary is this idea that even the slightest touch of the water will infect you. It's a certainty. And I find way less fear in anything that's certain. It's the uncertainty that scares me. So the idea of, say, the Vashta Nerada, where not every shadow, but any shadow, that is way scarier to me than all water is infected. If you touch it, you're doomed. And you add into that the fact that we know that these people are going to die. And so, again, it becomes a certainty. So there's none of the tension of, oh, maybe not. No, we know. And I think before I've been looking at it through the lens of, well, that makes it less scary. But I don't think the goal of the episode is actually to be scary. Not that it's not hoping to be scary a bit, but I don't think that's the function or the goal of the episode overall. So when so much praise focuses on how scary it is, and for me, I just find it to not be, I tend to go, well, it doesn't work very well. But there's a lot here that does work. There's a lot here that is very well done and makes the entire thing well worth making and viewing. That has nothing to do with it being scary. So like I said, whenever someone gets infected, it's played as tragic. I mean, I think the best example to give, it happens with most of them after the first couple get infected. It's Steffi. And she's trapped in this room. She can't leave it because the water's pouring down in front of the doorway. And the water starts coming in. And she turns and, watches a monitor with her family on it. And then the water starts to rain onto her, and she's crying. And the music is not high tension. It's not doom and gloom. It's not portentous. It's slow, and it's sad. Because the tragedy is that these people are going to die, no matter what. The Doctor knows that, and he's resigned himself to that. He even makes, and they kind of needed to, coming off Series 4, the comparison to Pompeii, that these people, because in Pompeii, you're and everyone in the city died. He could save a few. He could save a family. But here's all these specific individual people. It's important, historically, that they die. And the Doctor knows and believes for the majority of the film that he can't help. And then he does. And initially, and I say initially, I don't mean first time I watched it. I mean this time watching it. When he has that turn to be the Time Lords used to enforce the rules, but they're gone, so I get to make the rules. I was here it is, the arrogance. And the self-importance, and which again is not bad as a character trait. It's his fatal flaw in many ways, and there's nothing wrong with the lead character with a fatal flaw. But the music, it kicks in with I think it's the sort of the known bit from All the Strange Creatures. Very triumphant. He's coming back. He's like, yes, the Doctor's gonna save them. And we're like, why is this being played off as triumphant when it's this is a horrible idea? But it's because the thing's on a slower burn than that. And it's not till you get to the end, and he has this conversation with the captain, because it's not the fact that she kills she kills herself. It's that conversation she has with him that makes it clear why this is not okay. Because that's the thing. If this episode's gonna do this, it really has to drive home why this was not okay. Because on paper, the Doctor's right. history will more or less sort itself out. The correct events will still occur, just with a few different details. It's fine. He can do this. It's fine. And in terms of this specific event, that's true. But that's now instilled in him a sense of superiority that is not safe for someone with his degree of power to have. He shouldn't feel superior to the other beings in the universe. Because if he does, if he feels like the rules don't apply to him, no matter what his intentions are, he's going to become a monster. And part of me kind of wishes that coming off of this, sort of like in the Time Lord Triumphant, or Time Lord Victorious mode, if we had gotten a story after that of him just riding the high of the arrogance, it was probably a good idea not to do that before bringing him down a peg, because it might have damaged the character just irreparably. Part of me still feels that that's a little bit of a lost storytelling opportunity, but that conversation that the two of them have, and her saying flat out, this is wrong, and his response is to just look at her and go, tough. He doesn't care anymore. And the only thing that she can do in utter defiance of him, because the entire point that he decided to make was, I'm going to save you, and she decided, no, you're not. And the point is, and like, or at least the point as I took it, it's not that she has to die for history to be correct. That's not it. She's not doing this to preserve time or history, because, like, it's already changed. She was supposed to die on Mars, now she dies on Earth. She's doing it to show him the lengths that people are going to have to go to in order to stop what he's doing. And she kills herself. And that snaps him out of it. And he realizes, whoa, okay, holy crap. I did something with good intent, but I did something that put someone in a situation where they believed it was so important to defy me that they killed themselves. Not kill themselves to prevent or cause a specific thing, but just to defy me, because that's the only thing they could do in the face of what I have become. Wow. Okay. And he breaks down a bit. And rightfully so. Some of the times when the 10th Doctor breaks down towards the end of his run, I'm a little iffy on. This one, nope, that feels earned, because he was riding what had been a triumph. And it just got smacked out from under him. And this time watching it, and it's not like I didn't appreciate all of this stuff before, but for some reason in my head before watching this, that had always been part of the wrap-up. You know, that's part of how it ties into the next story. But I'd always kind of framed it through the, well, you know, it's telling this scary story that does this other stuff. But it's not telling a scary story. What it's telling is a story specifically designed to spur this Doctor down a path that he should not travel, and make him do it and believe he is righteous, and then smack him upside the head for having the hubris to think that that was okay. In some ways, I wonder if this story was reverse engineered from where the Doctor had to end up by the end to come up with what story would drive him to that point. I don't know if that's how Russell T Davies approached it. Maybe it is. I mean, I know there's like a book of him, you know, that records a lot of his thoughts and writings on this. So maybe I'm completely off base, but it does feel properly built. It's not a tacked on, oh, how do we connect to the next thing that I used to feel it was. It does all build to that. And if it scares you along the way, it probably adds to the effectiveness of it. It doesn't scare me. It never has. But for what it's actually setting out to do, it doesn't need to scare me. And I haven't even really talked about the performances, the music, the makeup effect, which, as I said, doesn't scare me, but is very cool. And Lindsay Duncan is phenomenal. And the rest of the supporting cast is pretty good, too. Not quite at the level of, say, the Impossible Planet Satan Pit. That's still my top for, like, we encounter a group of folks in a space station situation and they have an established dynamic. They're not quite at that level, but it's in the ballpark. And, yeah. All the other stuff is good, but I wanted to talk narrative structure and theming and build and what it's actually doing, because I'm still going to push back when people tell me that this episode is super scary or that it's good because it's scary. Because it's not. It's good because it earns the very extreme place that the Doctor goes to and the very extreme lengths that another character goes to snap him out of it. It's great because it earns that, not because it's scary. Which, again, for me, it isn't. But this has been a really fascinating rewatch. It might be the one that has gone up the most in my assessment versus the last time I've seen it. That said, it still might not crack a top 10 for me. We'll see. But, just fair warning. Waters of Mars. You seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's also a link to my Patreon down there. Helps cover my bills, and it's greatly appreciated. But, there's other stuff down there as well. There's my socials and link to my book and all sorts of stuff. Click on things. Check them out. You also don't have to, because at the end of the day, folks, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.